Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Graebe, and I am the Director of Nursing Continuing Professional Development at the American Nurses Association. I am absolutely delighted to be here with you during Nurses Month celebrations to talk to you about the importance of professional development. A little bit about me before we get started. I've been a nurse for about 25 years. 20 of those years was in the emergency department, working both clinically and also as a clinical educator and clinical manager. In 2002, I left my position as a staff RN in the emergency trauma department and took a travel assignment. I never thought that travel assignment would keep me grounded at the same hospital for many years. And it was at that hospital that I engaged in self-directed professional development, primarily because I was not an employee of the hospital. I was not eligible to take benefit of the professional development opportunities. This is where I found becoming more autonomous in my practice and more independent in my learning was what really projected me in terms of growing not only as a clinical nurse, but also as a person. I learned more about communication and how to communicate more effectively. I learned about emotional intelligence and how to become more self-aware and self-directed as a person and as a nurse. But I also learned more about how to become a better team player and a member of the interprofessional care team. It was also at this time that I engaged in evidence-based practice and brought what I was learning, not only through the Emergency Nurses Association, but also academic courses I was taking at a local academic institution, and started to talk to the leadership in this organization where I was a traveler about improving processes such as throughput and even our triage process. Throughout those years, I became a preceptor again and a charge nurse and continued on that learning journey. So I'm not here with you today to talk about myself, but I do have that connection with you in being a traveler and understanding how hard it is to feel integrated and a part of the team. But that inclusion came when I demonstrated not only did I have experience working at other institutions, but also that I was committed to lifelong learning and committed to advancing myself as an emergency nurse. Because I did that, I was encouraged to apply for a position only a few miles down the road as a clinical educator. And that's when I transitioned back into full-time employment at a hospital. Because of that opportunity as a travel nurse to build out my professional development and create a career portfolio for myself, I was able to envision what my pathway was going to look like as a nurse moving forward. I was able to bring to that interview and to that position evidence in literally a career portfolio of all of the nursing continuing professional development and continuing education that I had engaged in and how I was able to apply that in my current position as a travel nurse, and that I would be able to do the same thing not only at that organization, but also for the staff nurses I would be leading in terms of education, but also the travel nurses that would be engaged in that unit. A handful of years later, I became a manager of that unit, and now I'm at the ANCC, leading standards and frameworks for professional development globally. When we engage in lifelong learning, it's kind of like when we feed plants. We have to nurture a plant, we have to feed a plant with fertilizer, we have to take care of it so that it doesn't get infected. We don't want our brains to get infected with bad information. And so we constantly have to nurture that plant and take care of that plant. We can expect our healthcare organizations in which we're employed to provide us with that. But when we think about growth and development, we really think about doing that for ourselves and the importance of identifying those learning gaps based on the environment in which we're working and what type of learning we need to close those gaps. Sometimes our gaps are related to just pure knowledge. And then over time, we apply that knowledge in a skill-like setting or even in practice to fine-tune what we're doing, not only for the teams in which we work, but also for our patient population. And not every learning opportunity is going to be related to clinical practice. Sometimes the gaps that we identify are related to our own behaviors, beliefs, biases, and even improvements we need to make in terms of communication and behavior. You are in a unique position as a traveler to transfer the knowledge that you've gained working in different assignments all over the country. And you have a unique opportunity to continue that learning journey by creating your own pathway and creating your own career portfolio. Learning cannot be transactional, and specifically for travel nurses, we cannot engage in learning to think about how we're going to use that as a currency, similar to how we pay for food or we pay for gas. We need to think about learning as being transformational. What can I hope to gain from this learning activity or learning environment? And how can I use that to improve who I am as a person and as a nurse? When we look to seek for different types of learning opportunities, and this is certainly not a plug because I work at the ANCC, but it is something to think about in terms of the type of learning we want to engage in. I would encourage all of you to seek education that has been approved by the American Nurses Credentialing Center or is accredited as a provider of nursing continuing professional development. When we do that, we know that we're engaging in learning that is outcomes driven, that is based on professional practice gaps that have been identified, identification of where those gaps exist in terms of knowledge, skill, and practice, and that we're engaging in a learning environment that is active, that will help us learn and then challenge us to transfer that learning back out into our practice environment. That type of learning is based on the best available evidence and is free of bias and influence from ineligible organizations, and is also created to improve who we are as people, and not just time in a seat that we show up and then we leave and we are not able to articulate what occurred in that learning environment. This is a challenge that I have to nurses all over the country, that when we engage in professional development, we have a professional obligation to be able to articulate what we learned and how we're going to apply that learning in the future, and to look at learning as a milestone and not just something that we need to do every couple of years to submit to our boards. But this is something that we commit to on a daily basis, a weekly basis, and a monthly basis to continue to learn and grow, much like other professions like lawyers, architects, and even our physician colleagues. As you navigate Nurses Week and Nurses Month, think about the impact that learning has had on your professional career and the impact that learning will continue to have on you as a nurse in the 21st century.